My 5 years. I'm going to read to you what I wrote. December 8th, 2011. No one could ever understand the meaning behind this date except me. The day I got diagnosed is the day that will always be remembered, although everyone remembers it different. The day your phone rings and getting a call saying Stasia's really sick. She's in the hospital. She has lupus. Then thinking to yourself, oh, she's gonna be okay. This too shall pass. What's lupus? How did she get it? For how long? All these questions were being brought up and thought of. But can you just imagine what was running through my mind and all the questions I had at 15 years old, laying in a bed with doctors and nurses and social workers surrounding me on a day-to-day basis? I was terrified. It's crazy to know I can recite that day in my head by every second and minute and hour that passed. I remember being homesick for a week because I was having issues. My knees were hurting so bad I couldn't even walk. I started getting some type of rash on my face and ulcers all in my mouth and on my body. I couldn't even talk. That's when I finally told my mom we need to make a doctor's appointment because I knew something wasn't right. I knew I wasn't okay. My mom called one of her friends to come take me and her to the closest walk-in doctor around town. When we got to the doctor's office, I was telling my mom, hopefully this goes quick so I can get back to school. Well, the doctor called me in to get checked out, and I told him all my symptoms, and what I remember more than anything was the look this doctor gave me. That moment, I looked at my mom, and my heart started beating. Because I knew I was right, that I'm not okay. The doctor didn't say a word. He grabbed a notepad and started writing and handed it to me saying I needed to go to the Queen of the Valley Hospital. This is a more serious situation than he can handle. So I walked out and we headed to the hospital in silence because I had nothing to say. Well, I arrived at Queen of the Valley Hospital, and because of that stupid little note, I got straight through pass. No waiting for me. I was placed in a room and was still quiet, and so was my mom. We were both scared and worried and just wanted answers. So again, I had to wait for another doctor. I had 3 doctors check me out, one at a time, top to bottom. It was so uncomfortable for me. I was shaking. Then they left, and what felt like forever, the clock just kept ticking. And I was still laying there in silence. Finally, a doctor came in and looked at me and asked if he wanted my mom to step out of the room. I said no, I want her here by my side. So he checked me top to bottom just like the other 3, and when he was done, he looked at me again, and I had nothing but fear in my eyes from his. He didn't say anything at first. He kept staring at my mom, then to me again, and finally said, "Miss Gonzalez, we think you have lupus or Behçet's." I had no idea what he even said because I've never heard of either of those. Then he continued, "They are autoimmune diseases, a cancer." I stayed calm, but frozen, and felt tears falling down my face and telling him to continue to explain. He said that's all the predictions we can make or tell you, so he said I'm transferring you to Miller's Children's Long Beach Hospital. We have the ambulance that's going to take you and keep you monitored. Then he left the room, and I looked at my mom in fear, and she looked at me the same way. Because her baby girl wasn't okay. The ambulance ride felt like it took forever. I was laying there hooked up with monitors and needles in my arms and strapped down to a bed. When we arrived, it was super late, so this admitted me to a room, a really small room, with blue walls and a single hospital bed that I didn't want to fill. I was so tired, I just wanted to sleep, but I couldn't. I had more doctors to see and more worrying to do. All throughout the night, I had nurses coming in and changing my fluids and poking me with more needles and running test after test after test. A few days passed and I was still laying there, but they changed my rooms, a bigger one I guess, to make me feel comfortable. I still haven't got any answers, just test after test still. Could you imagine what I was going through? Days passing and still not knowing anything? After more days passed, a doctor came in, Dr. Shaham, and she looked at me and checked me top to bottom, which was nothing new to me in that moment. She was asking me questions, and I remember not being able to answer or remember what she said in those few seconds, so I broke down and I started crying. She lifted my head up and she said, "We can do this tomorrow." She hugged me and walked out, while I rested for another long, endless night. The next day she walked in again and told my mom to come near alongside of the bed, and she said, "You have lupus." That's when my whole life did a complete 360. She went on explaining what it was. And and it's a disease. No cure, meds for treatment, it's chronic, which means I'll have it forever. I didn't cry, I didn't tear up, I didn't freeze this time. I simply said, "Okay." She handed me a stack of papers, and it was for me to do my own research and get to know my disease that I just got diagnosed with. A nurse then walked in with the biggest bag of pills of meds I've ever seen. She said, "These are yours. We will have a nurse come in and tell you on how to take them." I just said, "Okay." It wasn't until December 25th I got to go home, Christmas Day. I was so weak and tired, I couldn't do much. No one could see me unless you had a face mask and gloves and sanitized completely. I felt like a robot. Days went by, more hospital visits, and pain was unbearable. I was ready to let go and give up so many times, but I didn't. I stayed strong, and the thing is, it wasn't really for me. I did it for my mom, and my brothers, and my sisters, because I know that they needed me. They needed me around. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be here today. Lupus changed my life, and who I am as an individual is because of lupus. The first few years were rough, and I lost myself. I was depressed, and I felt more alone than ever. But again, that didn't stop me from keeping my head up. Years kept going, and now I'm here on year 5, healthier than I've ever been since the day I got sick. People say I'm an inspiration, and it's those who stick with me that inspire me to be who I am. Lupus saved my life, and no one will understand that except me. I'm a warrior, and I'm going to stick to be a warrior for the rest of my life. December 8th, 2011 is my forever date. And I will stay strong, and I will live life to the fullest, and I won't let anyone bring me down. I'm gonna have days where I'm okay and I'm not okay, but that's normal. Who doesn't have good and bad days? I want to thank everyone who supported me in these last 5 years and stuck by my side and has entered my life. I stay strong for you guys. So there's my 5 years.